Patrick, we got to open the show with the opener, which is Trudeau's a genius. Now, I don't want you to say I said Trudeau's a genius, because I never said Trudeau's a genius. You said Trudeau's a genius. I said that people will think Trudeau's a genius, but that's the opener, is Trudeau's a genius, as says Patrick Francie.
Well, let's face it, he's not a genius, but here's what I came to in understanding something, where there's all this conversation about what's going on with rising interest rates. That's a huge topic. Is there going to be another increase in July? CPI is off the charts. It continues to grow, which is so ridiculous given the fact that a lot of that is based on housing, rent prices going up, etc. And part of the CPI is the actual interest rate component of a mortgage payment. So it all is just so weird, and it's gone, I don't know, it's just getting complicated. But here's the fundamental. They raise interest rates to slow down the economy. We know that. We are, as most North American, as North America is, we are consumer debt driven, and that's what drives our economy. In Canada, housing is off the charts in terms of what it does for our GDP growth. And it's not productive, however. It does create productivity in terms of construction jobs, etc. But a lot of our GDP growth is just based on debt-driven consumerism. So full stop, raise the rates, slow things down. But there's something that we keep complaining about, which is taxflation, the increasing taxes. But here's another understanding of what increasing taxes does. And this is where we got to give Trudeau a lot of credit. He's going to keep raising taxes. And of course, carbon tax is a big part of what is now happening. I saw a recent stats on the various taxes that have been implemented and the changes. And Canada is now up to over 45% of taxes that are being taken out of our pockets every single year.
Does it suck? Yes.
Well, what slows the economy down? Rising costs, rising interest rates, less disposable income. And what is just an awesome way to slow an economy down? Let's add some taxflation to that and really take the money out of the system. Let's stop people from spending because they don't have anything to spend because we're putting it into taxes. And I just got to say, Trudeau's a genius. He's going to slow this economy down. Him and Tiff are hanging out together. They must be discussing this, don't you think?
Patrick, I love paying taxes. I mean, I just thought that I should throw one ludicrous statement on top of a second ludicrous statement. But interesting, Patrick. The funny thing is that the government pours all this money into the economy, and this is exactly how they're sucking it out of the economy. And how the question is more, how long is it going to last? Is this something that's going to be this year, next year, or is this something that's going to be for the rest of like the 20s into the late 20s?
Well, I think there's a couple things around that. I don't see where the government's pouring money into the economy. And I understand that
they did with their trillions of dollars through COVID is what I'm talking about.
Okay, sure. And now we've got this huge debt. They've got rising debt payments that are going to be required. We're never going to get ahead of that debt. But they're not pouring, a lot of money into our economy, really. I mean, they're putting programs together. Got it. I won't even debate whether those are good programs or not. I'm a little bit tired of watching another billion or 500 million going over to Ukraine. I don't know why we continue to support that initiative because it's not about Ukraine. This is now a whole UN thing. It's just so political, and Canada shouldn't be playing in that space. We're a country of 40 million people. Why are we putting the stress on our own system right now to support a system that, the 500 million that we put in is going to pale in comparison to what's going on? Now Germany's in on the game, as is the UN. The US, of course, continues to do what the US does. I know that's a political and controversial statement, but it's not supporting our economy in that I'm getting tired of it, to be honest with you. So the point is, let's go back to what Mr. Trudeau is a genius at, and that is rising and raising taxes so that we can, in fact, slow the economy down. I'll give him credit for that.
I have two charts I want to show real quick, because the one thing that us as real estate investors definitely benefit heavily from is all the incoming immigration. All the incoming immigration tightens up the housing supply on all sides, the rental market as well as the buying market and the resale market, and us as real estate investors, we benefit from that. If you look at this chart, I know it might be, I hope it doesn't show up blurry on the camera, but man, look at Canada versus the US in terms of how much our population has grown since 2021. The US has grown, they were essentially flat, and they're growing at about 0.5%, give or take. We are up, Patrick. We've always been in that 1% to 1.5% range. We're now up to 3.5% population growth. That's mega. Like that's massive. And that has a huge repercussion on many things, but this shows about real estate. And for us as real estate investors, it definitely helps.
Well, it helps. Immigration helps because we need some labor, but there's a couple of components of this. So first off, we can't trust the U.S. numbers, to be honest with you. I mean, they basically opened up the gates and people are flooding into the country. I don't know how good a job they're doing of actually tracking that. Quite frankly, we don't even know how good a job Canada's doing in tracking it.
That would be that. I think. Are you referring to illegal immigration, Patrick?
Well, just immigration. Yeah, illegal immigration is so high coming into the U.S. and it's illegal. Legal, I don't know what. We don't even know what it is. So what I'm saying is this: and it doesn't really matter. The point is that Canada has off the charts, record breaking immigration. Here's the problem with it. Number one, we need the immigration because we need the jobs. But what quality of or what skill set are we bringing in to the country? Number one. Number two, we don't have the infrastructure to support it. And we're actually continuing to put strain on the infrastructure, whether it be housing, which is a common one, rental accommodations, really, really a big one, but also our healthcare system. And ultimately, what it does is it drives revenue, tax revenue. Okay, good news for our government. Again, we need that revenue. But more importantly, it's still at this point pretty non-productive. So although it's per capita, it makes the GDP look good because you're watering it down. The other part of it goes back to what I said before. It is, and I've said this several times, it is also part of what drives the inflation, given that people are setting up house and they're consuming. And so it's a non-productive thing. And I don't want to make any of it wrong, but just from us as a country, when we look at what we need to do economically, we need to be more productive. Go back to research and development, go back to manufacturing, as two examples, go back to exporting. Let's ramp up our commodities and get into being productive. And that's just not happening.
It's not happening. And I think that you want it to happen, but you're dreaming in Technicolor. It's not going to happen. It's not going to happen. Forget it. We're not going back. We're not going back to manufacturing. We're certainly not going. We're going to be going more towards regionalizing and bringing stuff in the country, not exporting more. So your export numbers are not going to be going up. You're certainly not going to be manufacturing more, not for export purposes. You will consume more within the country, I think, over the course of the next decade. But I think this is a pipe dream of yours to go back to once was in the 1980s.
Well, listen, it takes, if the country is like a business, you wouldn't run your business this way. And ultimately, a business will fail that doesn't have productivity, that doesn't drive revenue and drive more revenue than it does expenses. And we right now are continuing to be a country that is got a lot of expenses, but we're not driving revenue. That's it. And so is it a pipe dream? Yeah, perhaps. Am I hoping and trying to be optimistic about a future government that might change some of these policies and actually do something productive? Yeah, I guess I am. I'm trying to be that way.
Good luck with that, Patrick. But I want to ask you a question before we move on, because we've spent way too much time on this sticky note called Trudeau's a genius. I mean, I see it here on my desk and all I want to do is crunch it up. But let me ask you this. Is there a report? Because I don't remember, we don't talk about it. You just talked about the government's revenue. We know what GDP is. Got it. That's a figure we often report. We always discuss. We always debate. Fair. But the government's revenue, meaning what is the income line of the government? Is that something that you can find, Patrick? Is that something that the research team can pull? Like, do you see this number?
There's no such thing as an income line of the government. The income line of the government is taxes. That's fundamentally it. So is the tax
does that number exist in a report where we could see, okay,
oh yeah,
total tax receipts received 2023 is this many billions of dollars?
Yeah.
We can't get that. It'd be interesting to see. It'd be interesting to see where it's going. It'd be interesting to see, because we have all these assumptions how it's going up and there's more taxes and they're taking in more money. I'd be curious to pull that report. Let's make a note, research team. Let's pull that report. Let's see how that goes. Anyways, I'm done with this friggin' sticky note of Trudeau and him being a genius. So I'm throwing it away. We're moving on.
Okay. That was a very sarcastic sticky note.
Definitely sarcastic.
The lowest form of humor. Okay, sorry. Next.
You and I are not known for our jokes, Patrick. I mean, I tried the dad joke thing for a little bit, and let me tell you, it just hasn't. I have not been getting rave reviews. In fact, the other day I told a dad joke, and I had to explain it was a dad joke, and people were like laughing at the fact that I explained it was a dad joke, and I just thought my comic career is just going downhill real fast.
If you like what you learned here,
go to the description below and subscribe for our free Insiders newsletter, where you can also stay up to date for our upcoming events and our courses.
If you want to see more stuff like this, click here. If you want to see the entire show, click there.